EJ,
Hey,
we're going to talk about mistakes this week.
we are.
I wonder why that could be front of brain for me right now.
Mistakes have been made.
Mistakes were made.
They're always being made.
But so I'm going to tell you why in a second. Because I made a mistake, in case you didn't realize by now, which you probably did. But the process that goes on around making a mistake inside of you
Yes.
is so valuable.
Yes.
So let me just say right now that this is not a 10-step program of what to do when you make a mistake.
No.
That's crazy talk. And
No.
in fact, I do see people do stuff like that. Like, this is how to handle a mistake, or
No.
and it's so frustrating to me.
It's like every other thing that we talk about that's like it's going to be particular to your
Yes.
life, your body, your trauma.
Yeah, and like if you erase how somebody's naturally reacting, you don't help them be present for that and like see what's going on, you're like robbing them of all this like super valuable information about themselves. It's
True.
so helpful.
It's true.
So I want to talk about that. I do want to give you some tips for mistakes, but they're ones for you to fit into how you operate,
Right.
not this is how you do it.
Exactly.
I want to talk about how you react when other people make mistakes, because people reacted to my mistake on last week's episode. More on that in a minute. In a big variety of ways did we have reactions.
I mean,
so
yeah, and it says more about them than it does about you. Yep.
And then we're also going to talk about just like as a society, how we view mistakes, how we treat mistakes. There's all kinds of interesting things. Shocker, there's a lot of misogyny in this.
True.
So just
True.
That's the ride you're going on
Okay,
today.
this is our journey.
Okay, but this was inspired by the fact that in last week's episode, I made a mistake.
But we have to talk. I know you're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I really think it needs to be noted. This is like the most Mercury thing that's ever happened.
And I was talking about Mercury.
We were talking about Mercury.
As Mercury retrograde was ending.
Exactly. And it's like the most Mercury thing.
Yeah.
If you want an example of how like Mercury can fuck your life up.
This is a good one.
This is a good one.
This is a good one.
Sorry.
No, I feel you don't need to apologize. So, in case you're not listening in order,
right.
It was the Mercury and Venus in your chart episode.
Yep.
Where I said that Mercury was the god of war.
Right.
Mercury is not the god of war.
And I didn't catch it because I feel like every god and goddess is the god and goddess of war. Like that.
There is a war component to all
like
of them.
So many gods and goddesses. Like Athena, there's so many of them.
Yes. So I said it to you.
I went along with it.
You went with it because you trust me. And I heard it then a million more times because I edit the episodes.
Right.
I do all the videos for the episodes.
Right.
And I still didn't catch it.
Yep.
And then it goes out. The episode goes out.
So Mercury.
Plus, I decide that the very first clip that I should put on social media is me saying that Mercury is the god of war.
That probably was the problem.
I mean, that's where most of the feedback came.
Right.
And then it was like, holy shit. Why am I getting so many messages right now? Like, if you want to get a lot of like interaction on social media, I highly suggest making a mistake. Like, maybe do it on purpose because
I'm sure actually lots of people do that.
I bet they do.
Like lots of influencers probably screw up purposefully to get engagement.
I mean, it works.
Yes, it did.
So I wanted to talk about it because there was so much like valuable information, and there was so much like I was thinking about like how I was going to react and like what was I going to do about the fact that I made a mistake. And I was like, well, I should talk about mistakes because I mean, not to brag, but I made it 123 episodes without a big mistake like that.
Exactly. That's the way to look at it.
I mean,
that's the way to frame it.
I did pretty well.
Right.
But I want to talk about like the process of what it's like to make a mistake.
Were people nice or were people mean?
Both.
They were mean.
Oh yeah.
Stop it.
No, but we're going to talk about that. I mean, I don't take that personal.
I do.
I know you do.
Well, see, that's why we're here having this episode. I take it personally. Don't be mean to Heather.
Well, again, it's if you are a studier of human behavior, you understand what's coming in. And like, also, this wasn't the kind of mistake where like anybody died.
No.
I mean, I might have taken it more harshly if that was the case.
If it was something dangerous, right.
I also like I'm gonna talk about, well, I'll tell you my reaction now. We're gonna talk about like the gold and that, and like how your intuition and ego react when a mistake is made. Because I don't think a lot of people have thought that out and realized what's going on.
Right.
And I think that's really helpful.
Right.
But my first reaction, this is 100% honesty. Because you need to be honest with yourself when you make a mistake to understand this process, because it's very helpful. So the very first thing I thought was, there's no fucking way I made a mistake.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. No. What are these people talking about?
Nice.
How are they all wrong? Very first.
I love that.
Very first. But here's why. If it was in a different field, I may have not had that reaction.
Right.
But this is my field, and I actually do know
what
that Mars is the god of war. No, but like...
Right.
It was one of... I'll talk about how it happened in a minute, but like, that was my very... Like, no.
Okay.
No.
Right.
Ma'am. No. Okay. Then my second reaction...
I love that.
My second reaction was, oh shit, I am wrong.
Right.
Like, as soon as I thought about it, I was like, how did I say it and talk about it and hear it that many times and not realize I made a mistake? Like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. I mean, and just for the background information, originally the episode also had Mars in it.
I was just going to say that.
We decided to just do 2 because we thought people's brains could handle it a little bit better than if I started to talk about a third episode, you know, with astrology and all the stuff.
A third planet.
We narrowed it down.
And so you already had that Mars stuff
I had
in
Mars
your brain.
out, and so I just put that fact into Mercury. It didn't, I don't know how that happened, but I had already typed it, so I get it. Yeah, no, I know.
Right.
So then I thought, oh shit, and then I kind of laughed, like...
Good.
But not like laughing it off, like...
Right.
How was I so confident, and how did I screw that up? Right? Like, it wasn't... If it was math, I would have been like, of course I fucked up math. I can't do it. But like, this... Then I thought, well, how do I weasel my way out of it?
Yeah.
How do I not let people know that I'm wrong? Like, there's got to be some truth in it. Like, there is some war in Mercury. Like, that's what my brain wanted to do. It wanted me to still be right and to, like, find an angle as if I was, like, a PR person rescuing someone from a mistake.
Yes.
Yes. But very quickly after, I was like, no.
Right.
You just made a mistake. Like,
just own it.
You just have to own it. And then I thought, like, maybe this could be a whole episode that we could talk about mistakes. So that was my journey.
Here we are.
Yeah. But it's honest. Like, I did want to weasel my way out of it.
Correct.
I did want to be like, we'll see right here on this description of Mercury, it does say war.
I'm sure it does.
That's
why I didn't think twice about it.
But I still I still fucked up.
Right.
Like, you can't, like, but I
get it.
There's honesty in that. Like, if you know that, like, oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. So let's talk about how intuition and ego are kind of reacting in this process. Mm-hmm. And then we can sort of fill in. You can fill in some of your reactions. I can fill in some more of mine. Okay. So the first thing when you realize you've made a mistake is intuition.
Right.
Because intuition's always going to act first.
Right.
But I don't think people realize what it is their intuition's doing, because they focus on like the feelings that come later. Mm-hmm. But there's this thing that happens. And as soon as I say it, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Your intuition slams you into the present moment.
Yes.
You become very singularly focused on the mistake.
Hyper aware.
Nothing else exists, and you are super present. Okay. Your intuition does that for you.
Right.
Because think about that's just helpful anyways, but think about your ancestors.
Right.
And the price that they would pay if they screwed up.
Yeah.
This is like your whole intuition helping you survive. Just in case this is a mistake that could cause you or someone else to be hurt.
Right.
Okay. So it's like slammed in singular focus.
There's like a woolly mammoth involved in this
You've got to be only focused on the woolly mammoth.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. Okay. Then your ego reacts with fear, because your ego, that's literally its job.
Exactly.
And in this fear hitting you, a lot starts happening at once.
Yep.
But the very first thing that your ego is doing while you're very present is scanning for the cost of this mistake.
Yes.
What is the cost of this mistake to me and the people around me?
Mm-hmm.
You'll feel it. And it's
Yep.
fast, but you will. So I'm a visual person,
Mm-hmm.
right? Clairvoyance.
Right.
Literal things will flash in front of my eyes. Like for me, I was like, people aren't going to trust me on this podcast anymore. All these listeners, like, they're out. They're pissed. She
Right.
made a mistake, right?
Right.
Now, I know that wasn't going to happen, but that was
Right.
my ego scanning the cost. And if you don't understand that, you might think that stuff's true.
Absolutely.
You might believe your
Yes.
ego, but it's literally just going like, these are all the things we can think of that could be the cost to you.
Yes.
It's like a cost analysis.
Right.
Okay. How does it affect you, and who else does it affect is going to happen. And then the one that's going to punch you in the gut, the one that's going to trigger the shame and guilt that's going to come along with the fear, which is, what does it mean about you?
Yeah.
What does it mean about you that you made a mistake?
How dare you?
How dare you?
Right.
So a lot of interesting things are going to like form when you start asking that question. You're going to definitely hear your universal fear. If you haven't listened to our episode on that, please do. But that's rejection, abandonment, and fraud. So you're in some way, your ego's going to tell you, this is true now. Everyone's going to abandon you. Everyone's going to reject you.
Well, that's what
everyone's going to see you as a fraud.
Like, right, exactly.
Mine literally was like, people have rejected and abandoned you.
Right.
Boom. I think it's at all of them.
No
You're
more
clearly a
podcast
fraud.
listeners.
Yeah, they're all out.
Right.
You made one mistake, right?
You've been rejected.
You can hear it in the way that everything's framed.
Right.
So for you, you're going to hear, like, even if you're just picturing a mistake, it can be a small one, a big one, it doesn't matter. The thing that starts to get you is the story connected to that fear.
Right.
So whatever it is, that's going to tell, your ego's going to say, this is probably the cost you should focus on.
If I was in your position, my ego would say, and I made the mistake that you made. My ego would say, Heather's not going to trust you now to do this.
Oh, yes.
She's out.
Yeah. I'm never going to be on the podcast.
Right. Like, I'm abandoned.
Right.
Now.
Right. I mean, I have to tell you, I never thought that you were going to abandon me.
No.
Or reject me. But I was like, I did have the thought, and this is how the story got written for the listeners too, like, I let her down. Like, she trusts me, and I have let her down. Now,
in reality, you were like, I made a mistake, and I was like, all right.
You're like, okay. What one?
Oh, you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to do a whole episode on it.
Proud of you for that. Because I would be like digging a hole if it was me.
Right. Right.
But that's why we're talking about this, because for me, I'm saying I'd be digging a hole and hiding, but you made the same mistake.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no big deal.
That's how you know you've got some kind of like vow or story, or
you can't mess up.
Yes, because there's some cost that you have connected to it that isn't really real.
And it's not fair to yourself that like,
No.
I have this standard for myself that I can't screw up.
Yes.
But you can screw up, and it's literally not a big deal.
My expectation is that other people screw up. My
All the
expectation
time.
is that I never screw up. Or if I do, people don't see it.
Yeah, you exactly. You have to hide it, fix it.
Yeah. Never
Make
mind
up for it.
Never mind doing it in a place where you feel the most like confident and connected and know the most about the stuff.
Right, exactly.
Let me just do it there with all these people listening, and I can't take it back.
Yes.
I'm not going to take down the whole episode because of it. I thought about it,
could've.
and the thought occurred. Like, oh, that episode glitched. I don't know what happened. But that was a great episode, and that would have been so selfish of me to do that because there's literally just one sentence where I say that.
Right.
So I'm going to take down the whole thing
It's
to
okay
like
to make mistakes.
save face? Of course not. Of course not.
Right.
Did I think about it? Yes, I did.
Yes.
Yes, I absolutely did. So these ego stories start to really fire, and they trigger guilt and shame.
Right.
Now, guilt and shame are technically emotions.
Yeah.
But they are secondary emotions, meaning that they are reactions to other emotions.
Correct.
They are reactions to fear. Most of the time.
Yep.
Yes. So just keep that in mind. Like if you start to feel guilt and shame, people will be like, well, that's my intuition because it's feelings. And I understand the confusion with that.
Yeah.
But those are like created only based on an ego story.
Right.
Your intuition never is like, you know what
we want you to feel badly.
We want some guilt and shame up in this place.
Right.
Like if you're feeling guilt and shame, your ego is like really in high gear.
Correct. It's trying to protect you.
Now, should you never feel guilt and shame? No. Guilt and shame are
Right.
helpful if you're managing them and you're not
Right.
believing them and you're working through them. But if you're doing like the toxic positivity thing and you're like, everyone's allowed to
Never
make
feel
mistakes.
that.
Mistakes make me
Right.
a better human, or
Right.
whatever bullshitty quote you're going to use to get yourself through it, then
Yep.
you're going to miss out, because we're going to talk about this later, but like the way through a mistake is accountability.
Yes.
And guilt and shame are going to actually help you be accountable if you know how to work with them.
Yeah.
You know, if they don't overtake you.
You have, if you're going to feel guilt and shame, and
Yeah.
if you're going to screw up,
Yeah.
you may as well get a life lesson out of it. You may as well learn from it
Yes.
and like do better. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
Like that's the point of looking at it, and that's the point of the introspection, is to be like, okay, I screwed up, but rather than like running from it,
right.
let's take a couple minutes and realize like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You know?
Let's take a look at what's going on.
Right.
And listen, guilt and shame are sometimes going to win. Like you're never gonna, every time you make a mistake, like take guilt and shame and like sit with it and then move through it in a great way. Like that's not gonna happen every time.
Right.
But like if you can understand what guilt and shame's job is, that's gonna help. Because listen, imagine if I made a mistake like that on the podcast and I felt zero guilt or zero shame about it.
Problematic.
You know what I mean? Like you're supposed to, so that you really hold yourself accountable. Like I want our listeners to trust me.
Right.
I want our listeners to know that like I painstakingly research to make sure the things I'm saying are correct.
Right.
Like I want them to know that, and I don't want a mistake to undo that in any way. So if I didn't feel guilt and shame though, then I wouldn't be as good at doing this.
Right. Well, exactly. But it's like everything in moderation. You don't ignore the guilt and shame and just and power through, but you also don't sit in it forever.
Yes, you don't let it consume you.
Right. You acknowledge it, you look at it, and then you move on.
It reminds me in a way of anger.
Right.
Where anger is something that if you sit in and then move through and then use for action, because that's what anger's job is, to get you to move in some way, right? Then anger is healthy.
Yes.
But if you stay sitting stuck and just consumed by anger, then anger is unhealthy. And guilt and shame are the same.
Right.
Guilt and shame are motherfuckers. Like, I'm not trying to be like, guilt and shame are good, yay.
No.
Like, you know what I mean?
Shame is like the lowest frequency that you can experience.
Right. But the reason that the guilt and shame are like such like dredges on us is because of the way, like in society, we're taught to believe about ourselves.
Right.
So guilt and shame become bad guys.
Exactly.
Where really, if we lived in a perfect society, they would just be things we moved through.
They would be tools.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Okay, so that happens, and then intuition comes back and brings up feelings around the story and the price that you've decided, or the cost that you've decided, that comes with your mistake.
Right.
Okay. A lot of times people don't sit with these feelings and pay attention to them.
No.
And that is like, it's such a miss.
I feel like right after the guilt and shame, it's like there's also this like panic.
Yes.
Like when you've made the mistake, it's like this panic.
Yeah. Well, because it's hard, because you literally, because your intuition has slammed you into presence and this hyper focus, you literally can't even remember anything else besides the fact that you've made a mistake.
Right, exactly.
And depending on how big the cost is, or how connected to your self-worth the thing is that you messed up, you're going to have these like big panicky feelings. Like your body's going to want you to move because it wants you to react to the mistake in whatever form that is, right? Like it's probably not outrunning a saber-toothed tiger anymore, but your body's going to fill with adrenaline. Like you're going to react like that.
Yeah.
So if you know and understand that, it's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went for a walk after I made the mistake.
Smart.
Yeah, I was like, let's move this around my body while I think about what I'm going to do, because I don't want to make my plan while I'm still sitting in like the ego feelings.
Yeah.
While guilt and shame are still like really in charge of me.
It's like very reactive when you're making decisions from that place.
Yeah, and I know I haven't worked through the feelings that my intuition has told me about the story yet. So I don't have all the valuable information yet. Like once I did that, I was like, oh, you just need to talk about it.
Right. And you're also, and I know this sounds like not a big deal. If you're listening, you're like, this actually isn't a big deal, the mistake that was made.
Right.
But your body, your ego and your brain doesn't know that. And so it's really, you're having an adrenal response.
Absolutely.
Like your adrenals are firing, your nervous system is like completely activated.
Yes.
So like the decisions, if you make a split second decision in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
you probably don't have the whole picture. Like your brain
Right.
literally isn't allowing you
Yes.
to see the whole big picture.
Yes.
Which is what you need when you're running from a saber-toothed tiger.
Yes.
You need action, movement,
move
to live, right?
Right.
But like
some mistakes don't require that.
Right, but our brains aren't great at differentiating.
No.
And depending on how sensitive your system is,
Yep.
it can read like a very small mistake as a huge problem.
Yes.
That's why we need to look. That's why we're talking about this. Like, if you are a person who's traumatized,
yes,
myself included,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Like, your body is so protective of you.
Yes.
Your brain is so protective that you get to a point where it doesn't know.
Right.
So every mistake is like a perceived life-threatening issue.
Yes, and every other thing going on in your system is affecting that.
Right.
So like I remember after I had Gavin, my first son, he was a few days home from the hospital. Mm-hmm. I clipped his fingernail and I cut his finger.
Yep,
okay.
Happens.
This is a small mistake.
Correct.
I thought it was going to take me out. Like I had decided that I was the worst mother ever.
Right.
I was literally lying on the floor and my husband, like, you know me, I'm not like that. I'm like pretty even keeled, is trying to figure out why my reaction is like this.
Right.
And I have no ability to explain it other than to just be like taken out by it. Right. But the thing is like the hormones, like the stakes you feel when you become a mother for the first time and how everyone just expects you to know what to do. Remember leaving the hospital and you're like, why are these people letting me leave?
Exactly.
I'm not qualified for this.
Let me stay here forever.
Yeah. Oh my God. Right. So like the point being like maybe you have like your hormones spiking. Right. Maybe you have other stresses in your life. Like all of that is also playing a part in how your system is physically reacting.
Right. Exactly.
So you could, like, you guys might hear me talking about this mistake and be like, oh, that was no big deal.
Right.
But to me,
it actually wasn't a big deal.
No, but to me, it was a big deal,
exactly.
right? Like, I didn't stay in any bad place about it, but like, it's just important to go like, well, maybe you're judging yourself for your mistake. Like, I don't need to like go walk this out. This was a tiny mistake. Why am I reacting? And you kind of like add more shame to the pile for yourself. Yep. And it's like, no, give your body what it's asking.
No, right. That was a great idea.
Yeah. And there was no saber-tooth tiger, so I could wait until next week to address it.
To make a decision.
And I could think about it, you know, like, and then weigh in with you and see what you thought about it and stuff. So like, I had that opportunity, but had I just reacted in that like caveman brain way of like run,
right,
like you would have never seen me again. I would just run away,
exactly.
right? Like, so it's just important to like allow, but to like bring presence to that.
Exactly.
The feelings around the stories and the price that you have will tell you so much valuable information. So my biggest feeling around making the mistake was disappointment.
Okay. In yourself?
Yes, because I was like, I have let people down. That's the story, right? So what that reminds me, like, because I've done the work, as we say, right? And continue to.
Right.
I know that since I was a child, I have put this idea that like a lot of my worth is tied to like always being good, not making a mistake, not like being dependable, being right. So as soon as I heard that story and as soon as I felt that disappointment in myself, I was like, this is misplaced. And it's okay. I'm going to allow myself to feel, I still feel it a little like, oh shit, like I could go back and like put my voice over it and like, then it would be good. But it's like, no, I'm just going to leave it because mistakes happen.
Yep.
I don't think anyone was hurt. Maybe someone repeated it and so, like Mercury's the god of war and someone was like, you dummy. No, it's not. I don't love that.
Even that's a stretch. Though.
Yeah. But like, but do you know what I mean? Yep. But like, you'll go, oh, there's that familiar story. And then you'll be able to go, let me remind myself that my worth has nothing to do with that.
Well, exactly. But that's why we do the work, right?
Yes.
In quotes, because if you're not doing the work and healing your stuff and figuring out where your triggers are, then you have no ability in that moment to pull yourself out and be like, oh wait, this is
this old
this
story.
is right. This
Yeah.
is this old story. This is the abandonment thing in my case. Like,
Yes.
this is that story. This is that vow. That's why I'm feeling this way. If you don't know that and you don't do the work like in advance, then your system's freaking out and you can't stop
Yes.
for that like moment to be like, okay, wait a minute. Whoa.
Yeah, because
You can't put the brakes on it, on the response.
yeah, and you just keep dumping on your own self-worth.
Right.
And you have to become really good at having multiple voices all be happening and all be
Right.
like, there can all be true.
Right.
So like there was truth to the voice saying like, you feel really disappointed
Right.
in yourself because you want people to depend on you. You don't want to be the person
Right.
making it. Like that's connected to your self-worth.
Mhm.
That's true.
Mhm.
Should it be connected to my self-worth? No, I work on that. Right.
Right.
But like, it's still a truth.
Right.
Right. But if
Yeah.
I was just like trying to shut that down,
Mhm.
I would be missing the helpful information in that for me.
Right.
Right. And then I also was like, feeling like, am I as smart as I think I am?
Mhm.
Like, how could I have missed that? Like, why wasn't I more present to figure that out? Like, what's wrong with me? Right. And then,
negative self-talk.
yes. And then I was listening going like, nothing's wrong. Like,
Right.
then I could answer it without like hyper judging it.
Exactly.
But if you don't allow the space for that and you allow it to like, it's not a truth teller, but there's truth in what it's saying. Like, I'm not taking those things as fact,
Mhm.
but those are real voices that are occurring.
But if you don't know those voices exist or why they exist, then you can't stop them. It all sounds in your head in those couple split seconds as this is occurring. It just feels like fact.
Exactly. And then your self-worth starts getting really,
Right.
really low. And then you just want to give up on something. Imagine if I was like, I quit the podcast. I made one.
But that's how
mistake, right?
that's how some people are so highly triggered by
Yes.
such small events.
Yes.
Because to them in that moment, to their nervous system and their brains and their egos, it's not a small thing.
It's not. I mean, it's that emotional autonomy that we talked
Right.
about in the episode a couple weeks ago. It's going like, I'm going to be an observer. I'm going to pull up a little bit and observe the things my ego's saying,
Right.
the things my intuition's saying. I'm going to take all of that information in, and I run this whole system. I'm gonna work with it how I decide.
Exactly.
None of it's true. It's just like board members at your table giving you expert information in their fields, and then you're deciding what to do with it.
Exactly.
Right? You're the captain of
You're
the ship.
still the boss.
Yes.
Right.
So it's really helpful to remind yourself to do that.
Yeah.
One of the greatest things, and it sounds so silly, but like when you have those like different voices going on, like name them.
Yeah.
Give them a personality. Like they become less powerful when you do things like that. And then they just become like informers to you of what's going on.
And that just helps you identify them.
Yes.
When you're figuring that part out.
Yeah. And it reminds you that they're not just you.
Right.
So I think that helps. Before I talk about how we, like now when you've made the mistake you've moved through, you want to go into reflecting and rewriting these things.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you I know the answer, but what your reaction to mistakes are, because I think your reaction and my reaction are different. And I think it's a good example of, like your ego story is going to tell you something different based on your life experience.
Yep.
Yeah. So how do you, what sort of spiral do you go on when you make a mistake?
Well, it's funny because you told me to like think about some mistakes that I've made.
Mm-hmm. Which must have been fun.
Well, my ego does what it does, which is it literally just like slams the gate.
It was like we've made no mistakes.
If you asked me like on a regular day, do you make mistakes, Jamie?
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh yes, I have this list of them. Here they are. Here are all the times that I've sucked.
Talk about it on the podcast.
But my brain was literally like, I can't think of a single mistake I've made in the past 6 months. Obviously, there's a million.
Right.
I have a super reactive, very, like my ego is very much like full-fledged panic, full adrenal response.
Yeah.
Like to the point where sometimes like the room will actually feel like a little spinny.
Yeah.
Like it'll start to feel like things are shifting a little bit like in my vision, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, it's like the combination of like the weird hormone dump that happens in that slamming into presence.
Right, and that like adrenal response.
Yes.
Clearly my adrenals are fried. We're working on that.
We're getting there. We're working on healing.
But I very much have a response where I like panic.
Yeah.
Like all systems shut down, where like everything comes into like a really crisp view.
Right.
And then I want to hide
Yep.
all traces of the mistake
Right.
at all costs.
Yeah. Bury the body.
If that's lying,
Yeah.
cheating, stealing, murdering someone.
Yes.
For anything.
Yes. Anything to get me out of this mistake. Yes.
Right, excuse
yes.
me. But
Well, that was me going like, well, how do I spin this?
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
to a different severity.
And granted, I don't have this big of a response now. Like,
Right.
like I'm currently working on that.
Right.
But I can still see traces of that in my response.
Oh yeah.
Where I have to actively be like, hold on a second. Like I'm literally having thoughts like that. Like, whoa, we're safe. Chill for a second.
Yes.
And then I do like a scan of like, you know, and you don't realize it when you're doing it in the moment. Like now that you're laying it out.
Yeah.
When it's happening to you in your head, you don't realize you're doing this, but you are doing a checklist of like,
yeah.
okay, so what's the worst case scenario of this
You're
mistake?
scanning.
Like,
yes.
like what do I have to deal with worst case scenario?
Right.
Like, and how do I manage that? And then
Right.
you know, you do all these scans.
Yes.
And then I'll choose something that feels like safe enough for me.
Yes. And you do this in like a nanosecond.
Literally.
I mean, you then, because it's your ego, you'll keep
Right.
running them.
Right.
And you'll keep visiting the same ones and making them worse or better.
Right.
Or like you'll adjust them. But like this happens so fast that even if you are as present as you were explaining, like, whoa, we're safe.
Right.
You're not gonna go like, oh, now I'm currently in ego stage 1.
Exactly.
Like
right.
you just have to do what you said. Like,
Right.
let me be present about this.
Yes.
Okay, this is where we are. We're safe.
Right.
Like, calm down, body. Let's take a look.
Right.
You know, like let's go through this process and be
Right.
present. Like that's really all you can do.
Yeah, and I start to feel like my like cheeks will start to heat up. Like I have like a full
Like
physical
embarrassed.
response. Yeah, or like fight or flight mode.
Yep.
Like usually it's initially flight
Yes.
and then it's fight.
And then it's like we can't flee.
So we're just
We
gonna
must
run
stay
at
and
this and
fight.
fix it. But even I can see where like I'll make a decision about like how I'm going to address whatever the mistake is.
Yep.
And then a couple minutes later I'll be like, okay, we don't actually have to do that. Like it's
Right.
not that bad. Like
Right.
it's, you know, even in like 30-second, 60-second increments,
Yeah.
the system's calming down and you're like,
Yes.
okay, it's not that bad. Like,
Right. Exactly.
you know, the nervous system's chilling out a little bit.
Yeah. This is actually not a saber-tooth tiger.
Right. But like if you grow up like with the story that you have to be perfect, you
Yeah.
can't screw up
Right.
because
The cost is too high if you do.
right, you're ruining it for everybody else. Then like one perceived mistake is a problem. It's like a real problem.
And not only do you feel like it's unsafe for you,
Right.
but you feel like the consequences are putting other people in jeopardy.
In danger.
Yeah.
Like that's like if that's the vow that you wrote, which is the
Yeah.
vow that I wrote,
Me too.
that like other people will be in danger
Yeah.
if I make a mistake.
Yeah.
And unfortunately at 4, 5, 6 years old, I like didn't have the cognitive ability to
No.
like quantify like levels
Right.
of danger or levels of mistakes. It was just like mistake, death.
Yeah.
It
And your
wasn't,
ego
you know?
doesn't do that. Like your ego doesn't have the ability to do
No,
that.
so
Like
there's,
that's
like-
why people will be like, but this little thing caused this huge vow.
Right.
And it's like it
wasn't little.
It experienced a moment of
Right.
fear that was so big it couldn't get out of it.
Right.
And it created a story to get out.
Right.
It doesn't really matter if like now looking back you can see that was silly.
Right. It feels little now. It is little. You realize it's littleness.
Right. But
But
to
then it
you
wasn't.
as a 6-year-old,
It was not
it
little.
was huge.
Right.
It was huge.
Right.
Yeah. So it's so valuable to know this and then to also like without real judgment, to like judgment in the bad way, but to go
Mhm.
like, how was my reaction there?
Right.
Like, oh, I see some growth, or in this field, because it had to do with my work or had to do with
Right.
my kids or whatever, I took it a lot bigger.
Yes.
Like it was a lot harder
Right.
for me to work through that.
See, and I say that to you all the time.
Yeah.
It's like I'll be talking to you about something and I'll be like, 6 months ago,
Yes.
that would have been a problem.
Yes.
6 months ago, I would have been through the roof over that. Like, I think if you're doing the work and you're paying attention, it's you're more apt to see where there are problems and where there's work that still needs to be done. But I think you also start to see where the growth is.
I mean, that's the gift of like learning to get along with your ego. Because that, what you just said, 6 months ago, I would have reacted like this, and now I react like that. That's your ego telling you that.
Exactly.
That's not your intuition going like, feel better, Jamie, you did better. Yay. Like, you know what I mean? That's your ego going like, okay, we felt safer getting through this. This isn't so
scary anymore.
Yes. So it's why when people make the ego the bad guy, I get like really spicy about it, because it's like, no.
Right.
You just need to start to improve your relationship. You need to understand it and what its job is.
Exactly.
So that you can work through it. But I just want everyone to really hear that even if you do the work and you're in it and you're doing such a good job, you're going to have a time where you make a mistake and you react as if you've done no work.
Right.
And you're like, why did 15 years ago me just show up about this mistake?
Yes.
It's going to happen. It does not mean you've done anything wrong or reverted backwards. It just meant that this trigger hit you in a place that needs a little more healing.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
There's some shadow work to be done there.
Always. That's the spiral staircase,
It is. Exactly. Okay. I think we should take a quick break.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about like kind of how to rewrite these things a bit.
Okay. I don't even know what to say. For my obsessed. I was thinking about what we're obsessed with. And I think it's finally time for me to just say that, like, we have to do something in this country.
Okay.
Like I sent you a TikTok about a teacher in a Florida public school.
Oh yeah, with the books.
Where she physically showed the books that were being like banned.
Yeah.
But they were these huge. I mean, you have a visual of it in your mind, right? Oh, there are a list of books that you can't have. Like, oh, like this is bad, blah 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 blah. But then you see this teacher in the hallway. They're like carts full. I don't even know how to describe like what the container was that they were in, but it was probably hundreds, if not thousands, of books in one school.
Yeah,
they were like away.
Mini dumpsters.
Basically. And it was, for me, the visual of it was really like, we're here.
Yeah.
And I've been saying it, and like I know that everyone thinks that most people think that I'm like overreacting.
Who thinks that?
I think lots of people think.
No.
I think most people are not reacting enough. Agreed.
Yeah.
And like I've lost a lot of followers on social media because I've started doing this thing where I'll post an article and then I'll write over the top of it fascism. So lost a lot of followers, meaning like 15. Some fascists were like, and people were like, I don't like, this is a bad time, Jamie.
Oh, like,
I'm
just show me pictures of your children.
I'm assuming.
Just be a quiet woman who doesn't speak her mind, Jamie.
Right.
Come on.
So obviously I won't stop doing that.
I hope not.
But like, and I know that we have listeners from all over the world, right? So this probably doesn't apply as explicitly to your country if you're not in America.
Right.
But like, if you were like, when are we going to know it's bad?
Right.
It's bad. And you're not going to know it's like explicitly bad because that's the point. It's like, it's going to creep up on us and it's been creeping up on us. And it's like, I feel like we've been trying to sound the alarm for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how that looks in everybody's life because we all live very different lives in different places, but like, it's go time.
It is. You know, as humans, we have this mechanism to cope with hard things that sometimes hurts us or like hold us back from taking action or being alarmed.
Right.
Because like imagine if you let your system fully experience all the bad things that were going on in the world.
Correct.
And so there's this coping mechanism that like you hear about this happening like in Florida and you go, well, I don't live in Florida. Thank goodness. Like, and then I do this thing it's awful, but I know everybody does it where you're like, well, why are they voting for these people?
Right.
That's the wrong reaction. Now, sometimes you have to have that reaction.
Yeah.
But like, it's also not fair because what are you going to do? Wait till it becomes the thing in your state and then fight back when it's too late? Like, what you're saying is absolutely right. And then, but there's also this like human reaction and you're always trying to manage like, okay, well, when do I get really fired up. And then what do I do?
Right.
Because besides be upset, right? Like, so it becomes this very difficult thing that I think a lot of people just opt out of.
They tap out because
Yeah.
they can't function with it.
Yeah.
But I think for me, what really is becoming very problematic is like you talk about Florida, and you're like, well, we're in Massachusetts. It's very far away. We have very different political systems. We have different laws here.
Right.
Different social mores that are at play. But like, their governor is poised to become our next president, and he is like a legit shot at it. And like, that's like we're at the tipping point. Like, does Florida become America, or does America become Florida?
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you have studied history at all,
Mm-hmm.
If you look back, the question you always have when you're reading about the atrocities is why didn't anyone speak up? When
Exactly.
that happened? I mean, did you read or watch The Handmaid's Tale?
Or like in Nazi Germany, like why were people allowing things like that to happen?
we're cautioned all the time that that's when we need to act if we want to stop the big bad thing from getting out of hand.
Right.
So this is when we need to react.
And there are like clinical stages of things like that, like stages of problem, like things.
Yes.
I think it shocks people to know that we're at like the end stages.
Yes.
Like we're on the verge, like we're on the literal verge of genocide.
Right.
Like sociologically, like they have been studied and then like categorized.
Right.
We're at the end stage
Right.
of that.
Yes.
But we don't know.
Right.
Because the trick is to like not look or to pay attention to this thing over here or to tap out a little bit.
Or to everyone on social media talking about if they like Taylor Swift's boyfriend.
Right.
Okay, but like books are being banned in Florida.
Exactly.
I know you're trying to like feel drama around something more manageable. I understand that, but like you're missing it.
Right.
Like there's tough things happening, and I would love to just go like, okay, but the people with the power, they're gonna fix it. But you cannot wait for that. You have to start acting. You have to start doing something. You have to figure it out, whether it's speaking out on your podcast, whether it's in conversation with people, trying to listen, but like trying to help. Instead of just arguing, being like, let's see if we could look at this different. Like here's like you might go like, oh, who cares if books are banned? But you have to go, okay, but why are they banned? And what does that lead to?
What happens after that?
And
Right.
who does that help?
Right.
Who benefits from this?
Right.
And who's gaining power from this? And how do they get there?
Right.
Like those are the things you have to be paying attention to. And if you know someone who has the ability to do something about it, go next to them and go like, how do I do it too? Like I wish I could answer. I wish I could say, here's what we all need to do, everybody. But we need to start talking about it so that we can together figure it out.
Well, I think that's why I brought it up today, because I was thinking like, what else can I do about this besides donating to certain causes, besides like posting on social media? And I was like, well, you have a pretty decently sized platform that you can speak up on.
Yes.
So I'm speaking out about it.
I love it. I think it's so important. And I think if you're listening and you're, whether you're like feeling that frustration too, of like, what do I do? I'm scared. This is hard. And you just want to share that, please do.
Right.
Also, if you're like, I have ideas.
Yeah.
Come tell us.
Yeah.
We'll share them. We'll do the break. We'll fight along next to you. But it's certainly already too late to take action.
Right.
So there's no longer, we can't wait any longer.
Right.
We have to go. All right. So before we move on to like the psychology of mistakes, I just wanted to give people a few things to do in the process of making a mistake. And again, this is not a 10-step program. These are like questions to ask yourself and like things to do to help you understand your own system.
Correct.
Okay. So the first question you want to ask yourself is, what does it mean about you if you make a mistake?
Exactly.
And you need to let that answer be both sophisticated and simple.
Yeah.
Because the answer, the first few things you're going to say, these sophisticated answers, if you just imagine me sitting in the room with you going, why? Right. You're going to get to the simple answer, which is that you are unworthy, that you are going to be rejected by everyone, and that means that you're a bad person and there's something wrong with you. or you're going to be abandoned by everyone, and that means you're a bad person. There's something wrong with you, or you're going to be seen as a fraud, and that means
But
you're a bad person.
the answers are first going to be like, well, what does it mean that you made a mistake? Well, it means that I suck.
It means
Why?
that I'm
an
stupid.
idiot.
It means
like
that
I'm an idiot. I fucked up
yes.
once again. Fucked up once
Yes.
again, Jamie.
Yes.
Like, but then you start pushing under that. You keep saying why, and then those answers reveal that.
Yes, but there's also gold in the first answers.
Right.
Like my first answer was, I'm careless. You know I'm not careless. No,
Really?
I'm like the least like I'm the most caring, careful. I am those things. But the thing that my brain said was, you're careless. And guess why I'm so careful of everything? Because there's some worry in my system that people are going to think I'm careless.
Exactly.
Right? So like, it's just like, oh, interesting. And you're going to tell your friends, hey, I thought I'm careless. And they're going to make the face Jamie made at me if you watched the video of like, what? You? Right. And you're going to know, like, that's crazy. Yes.
It's not real. Right.
But it's valuable info.
It sure is.
It really helps you understand yourself. So all of that. And we don't like go down to the root of it, which is always fear, abandonment, and fraud. Written differently than that. The wording is probably phrased like a 6-year-old.
Correct.
Most likely.
Right.
And it's very simple. And then you can kind of go like, what did I think was going to happen because of that truth?
Right.
You know, and mine was, my mother will die. You know, like, and you're like, that's not even logical. So like wherever you get to, don't expect it to be a logical
it's not
answer.
Make a lot of sense.
No, but knowing it's going to be really helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your expectation of yourself when it comes to mistakes?
Perfection all the time, 24/7. Be perfect all the time. Never make mistakes.
Right.
I mean, that's the script, right? Like,
yes, because of the answer to the first question.
Right.
So like you can really see valuable information.
Right.
And I know it probably sounds silly, like you're imagining me like expecting you to sit and like journal out these questions, but like asking yourself questions is the key to understanding yourself. That's why talk therapy is a thing. That's why sitting and like people come and like want to talk to me is so that I'll ask them the right question to lead them to say the thing.
To the answer.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. The next one is, what will happen if you make a mistake? What's the thing that happens? Right? Like anarchy. Small mistake. Anarchy. The world burns. Like what is
People
it?
hate you. They think you're stupid.
Yes. Everyone's going to leave you, Jamie.
Right.
That's always going to be your story, right? Okay. So what constitutes a small mistake versus a big mistake?
A small mistake is if only I know about it.
Oh, interesting. So it's the amount of people who witness it.
Yeah.
Okay. Mine would be written the amount of people affected.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They might not know it was me.
Right. Oh, right. Gotcha. Yeah. Oh, yeah. People would have to know it was me.
But it might sound silly, but if you haven't thought that out, you might be surprised at the answer.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. All right. So think about your inner child's reaction and consequence. Okay. So think about 6-year-old you and how, if she made a mistake or he made a mistake or they made a mistake,
what would happen?
What would have been the thoughts and perceived consequences and feelings and reaction?
And what actually would have been the consequence and the reaction? Like maybe you got a really bad response to a mistake one time.
Maybe you just took something funny.
Right.
I mean, how many times as a kid were you just like bullied but by like someone who's like your friend, and it wasn't even like, you look back and you're like, that was just teasing, but like you took it in this way, like it hit you right in the wrong spot. Like how many times did that happen to you?
Yeah.
So many, right?
As a parent, I can see that happening to my kids. Like I can see interactions in our family, and it's a complete joke. Like we're all joking around, and then I can see one of my kids get something twisted.
Yes.
Because their ego read it the wrong way. And I'm like, whoa, what just happened?
Yes.
And then I'm like, oh, your feelings just got really hurt.
Yes, you and I talk about that, how like your kid will make the other kid the bad guy. The other person is just like the worst ever. And you're able to more objectively look at it and see that isn't true, and like trying to help them through that, because you know, if you're trying to take less heat for something, the
Mhm.
best thing to do is to make the other person like the absolute villain,
Right.
right? So like you can watch all these processes really easily in other
Right,
people,
in other
but
people,
for
right.
yourself, it's a lot more
Correct.
difficult to see. So like really just picturing yourself as a kid and
Mhm.
thinking about that. Even
Yeah.
if you're not able to remember a real scenario, we know you're like a memory savant of your childhood, Jamie. But if you could just picture what it was like.
4 memories.
Yeah, right. If you could
Right.
pull up one of the 4 or just perceived what you think would have happened.
I can do that.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
that is
Right.
that is equally as helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. A point that I think a lot of people miss, because I hear people framing mistakes or telling me about a mistake, and they'll say something like, I know I felt like this and that was the wrong feeling.
Mm.
There is no wrong feeling. You
Correct.
actually can't feel a wrong feeling. That's an ego rule, right and wrong.
Correct.
That doesn't apply to intuition, so it doesn't apply to feelings.
Right. Yep.
Your intuition is going to spark the emotion or emotions that you need to process to move through. Not necessarily the like right one or the justified feeling or the equal to the crime feeling.
Gotcha.
It's just telling you like process this.
Yep.
So if you made a mistake and you felt really angry, it's going like you need to process anger to move through this.
Yep.
If you made a mistake and you felt sad, it's going you need to process sadness.
But if you're sitting there feeling sad and then judging yourself about it, that's not helpful.
Yes, but people will literally say to,
Right.
like as if they're like
Like, it's so
recording
silly.
on
Like, I'm
themselves.
crying. I'm so silly.
It's so foolish of me to
Right,
cry over this
right.
mistake, and I'm like, no,
Right.
that's just how
crying
you're
for a
moving
reason.
through the
Right.
mistake. Yes, so just be careful not to apply that right or wrong idea.
Yep.
And that's why the 10-step program to dealing with a mistake will never work, because you
Exactly.
literally just need to deal with the feelings that you have.
Exactly.
Do I want to weep every time I watch a movie where something sad or happy happens? No. Would I rather have some ability to express emotion in when real life things happen, when it's not a movie, book, or TV show?
Right.
Yes. But is that how my system operates?
No.
No. We're just
Right.
going to go with it.
Yep.
I'm always going to have puffy eyes at the end of a movie. It's weird and it's fine.
Happens.
It happens. Okay. How do you react to other people making a mistake?
This is a good question.
So I have to tell you that I was telling my son Gavin, my oldest son, about this episode. We were discussing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him that question.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked his answer.
What was it?
He said, well, do I like the person?
Oh. Interesting.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, smart.
Right, because you're going to be more patient with people that you love. You're going to be more, like, empathic.
If
Or
somebody
empathetic.
just like grinds your gears, you don't like them. Anything they do, you're like,
Come
what
on.
an idiot. Yeah. But somebody you love, you're like, I understand.
Yes.
It's all right. Like,
It's a
so
super valid point.
So I just wanted to bring that up, that it's definitely going to be skewed,
Mhm.
the amount you feel of something, but you're going to probably frame it pretty similarly.
Yeah, but even if it's people that you love, like we've discussed a lot with myself, but I don't think I'm the only person that does this. But
Uh-huh.
like when my kids, especially when they were younger,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize why I was getting so frustrated with them, which you helped me see.
Yeah.
Was that I wasn't frustrated with the mistakes that they were making.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually like almost jealous
Yes.
of the space that I had created for them. I did it.
Yes.
But like it was this
Your
feeling
inner
of, like,
child was going, this isn't fair.
like how come they get to be upset and have a temper tantrum and you're gentle parenting them through this, and like no one did that for us. Like
Right.
we had to suck it up and shut up and like be nice to everybody and
It's like deal with it 20 years later in therapy.
right. Exactly.
Yes.
But like if you're flipping out because someone's making a mistake, it could be for a lot of reasons, but could also be that like
Yeah.
you needed some grace that you weren't given.
Absolutely.
And so it doesn't feel safe to give someone else grace.
People react to a mistake in the way that they feel about themselves when they make a mistake.
Right.
So if you're not doing any of the healing work,
Right.
you're going to be like the people. I left the comments up if you want to go look on the TikTok. I also have a bunch of private messages. Okay. Here was the range. We'll use these as examples. Okay. The first one I read
Damn it.
was this is how I realized I made the mistake. Was, what makes you think Mercury is the god of war?
Oh my God.
So think about that. What did that person want me to feel?
Stupid,
And
embarrassed,
shame.
ashamed.
So how do you think they feel when they make a mistake?
Terrible.
Stupid and shame.
It's clearly projection when you're talking like that to someone.
Yes, if you want someone else to feel bad when they make a mistake, it's because that bad is how you feel when you make a mistake. And so instead of going like, let me work through this myself, you just project your shit all over everybody else, right? But it's fun. It's amusing to somebody like me. I feel like I sound like a robot sometimes, but like where I'm just like, you just gave me so much information about yourself. Because like I mean, I don't feel the way you want me to feel based on your comment. In fact, I got really distracted for a few minutes, like being like, what's going on in your life? Like,
yeah, I'm sorry someone hurt you.
Yeah, ooh,
so
gosh,
badly.
what
that
happens
you're
when you made a
talking
mistake?
to strangers like that.
Right. So that was the
Dare
first.
you?
Like how mad you're getting. But like that was the first thing I read, and I was like, huh.
Mhm.
And then there's other ones, and there's some messages that were from like obviously some of them are our listeners, some people I like recognized who their messages were like, hey, I was just listening and I noticed that you said this.
Right.
I think it's this. I just wanted you to know, love this part of the episode later.
Perfect.
And I was like, that's a person that when they make a mistake,
It's okay.
they want someone to tell them, but they also don't want to feel too bad about it. They want to move on. They didn't want me to feel bad.
It's not like a complete reflection of their character.
No, they're just like, I was actively listening and noticed this, thought
Right.
I'd bring it to your attention.
Yes.
I didn't mind. I liked that.
Same.
But there's also the people who were going overboard. Oh my God, I hope you're okay, but I just wanted to let you know that you made it. And I'm like, okay, so you feel these huge emotions, like you feel so bad, but
Right.
you're imagining that I feel that bad.
Right.
But I don't, but you're treating me like you would feel. Do
And
you
they're
see
trying
what
to
I'm
take
saying?
care of you through it.
Yes,
Right.
but if I didn't feel that bad, you might make me
You
feel
feel
worse.
bad. Right.
So it's really interesting
Right.
how it just is so much information.
Exactly.
Sometimes when other people make a mistake, though it's not the way you actually outwardly react isn't the first feeling.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't say the quiet part out loud. I mean, I'm going to tell you about people saying the quiet part out loud to me a lot at work. Well, I'll tell you that, which is really funny to me. But like sometimes your first reaction is like, what a dummy.
Mhm.
But then you go like, oh, let me fix that. Like,
Yes.
do you know what I
Right,
mean?
yes.
But like all of that
Right.
is valuable information.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that people say to me often, and this wasn't about this mistake in particular, but this is something that I notice happen at work a lot,
Mm-hmm.
where I'll make a mistake and then we'll talk about accountability, but I'm pretty good at owning mistakes.
Yes, you are.
And I see this whole episode.
Right. Exactly.
They will say to me, oh my God, I actually like that you made a mistake because it just reminds me that you're human. And I was like, I'm always like, you said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
So here's
and
the-
you're like, you actually, like, this is why I feel like I can't make mistakes.
Yes. But what they're really saying
Mhm.
is when I don't actually allow myself to be human,
Right.
I don't allow myself that. So the fact that you're someone who I perceive doesn't make a lot of mistakes,
Right.
that you made one makes me feel like I have more permission
It's
to be
safer.
human.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with me.
No.
It has everything to do with you.
Yes.
But it's those times where like, be careful who you're talking to because some of us are psychological human behavior masterminds. And when you give us this information, like, I'm not going to use it against you, but imagine if I did. Like, you just
But
told
now
me
I know more about
such
you.
vulnerable
Right.
information about
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
How do you want someone to feel when they've made a mistake?
Oh, I want people to feel like it's okay.
Yeah, because that's how you want to feel.
Yeah.
Just a reminder. I
Yeah.
want other people to, depending on the kind of mistake,
Yeah.
I want them to feel like it's okay, but I also want them to act accountable for it.
Definitely.
I don't want them to try to weasel out of it.
Agreed.
That's my honest feelings.
Yeah, no, I want someone to be accountable, but I don't want them to feel like they're in trouble or
No.
that, I want them to feel like they can just say, I
Yeah.
screwed up
Right. I mean, maybe if you murdered someone,
Well,
does a
right,
different standard.
relatively.
Yeah,
right.
right.
Like
It's not a crime. Maybe if you didn't commit a crime, but you made a mistake.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Right, exactly. Okay. So let's talk real quick about what to do if you make a mistake.
I just had a light bulb moment of someone in my life of why they respond certain ways. That's why this is so helpful.
Okay. Yeah, it's
This
helpful
is so helpful
for
and
yourself,
the way you just
but
said
for
that. I was
other
like, oh,
people.
that's why they do that. Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh, you're going to tell me after.
But you can do that with anyone in your life.
Yeah.
When you start to pay attention and watch people's reactions,
Mm-hmm.
you're just, like you said, it's just more
Right.
data.
It's also why somebody like me is very careful and calculated around people and what they say.
Right.
Because and also for some strange reason, you like it when I call you out on doing this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know what is the thing in your brain. Most of the humans don't. Like if I was to say the things I say to you to anybody else, they would be like, you are the worst fucking time.
No.
Well, you don't, but that that's true. You've seen it before.
Well, because you're nice about it. Like,
Yeah.
you're not a jerk. You
Well,
don't
you
make
know
me
my
feel
intention.
Right. You don't
Yeah.
make me feel embarrassed or ashamed. You don't even.
Yeah.
You most of the time, at least for the first phases of don't talk to my cops about it. A little later, you'll joke about it.
Yeah,
But you're very kind about it, and I want to know. Like,
I know.
I want to know why I do the things I do, and I want to do better.
Right. I'm just pointing out that it's like this very odd mashup of two humans that really work, where one of them just wants to be so hyper aware of why they do everything, and the other one is so sick of filtering it all
Right.
the time that to have someone to just be like, blah.
Right. Exactly.
Would be funny. Okay. But my point being, if you start doing these scans, maybe be careful who you say it to.
Yes. Exactly.
Don't just be like, oh, sounds
Oh,
like
I see you have a problem.
sounds like you feel a lot of shame around your mistakes and you're kind of making up for it on me.
Right.
Careful.
Just be thoughtful.
Yeah. Made that mistake way
A
too
lot,
many times in
right.
my life. Yeah. Okay. All right. So the first thing you want to do when you make a mistake is you want to pay attention to your process.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we've been talking about the whole time. What is your journey through this mistake? You want to move through. You don't want to go around it.
True.
You don't want to try to avoid it. I mean,
True.
allow yourself to feel that, but
Right.
have that come to whoever. I was going to say Jesus, but I didn't feel like it. Come to
Whoever
Horus moment where you're like, I'm going to just go through this.
Right.
And go through it. There's no other way.
The only way out is through.
Exactly. There's such great, incredibly valuable information in your process
Mm-hmm.
that shame and guilt are going to be present.
Yep.
They're not going anywhere. They're part of the process. But if you can really turn your attention to what you're being given for information from your ego and intuition instead of what it means about you and your self-worth, if you can
Right.
sort of shift that framework a little bit, it's going to be incredibly helpful.
Yes.
And again, your reactions can vary in different parts of your life. Maybe at
Mhm.
work, mistakes feel bigger, or maybe at home or in a relationship or in a friendship or wherever. Maybe,
Great point.
So it's
Parenting.
parenting, right? The places that the mistakes feel bigger are the places that you feel a little less secure
Mhm.
about how you are worthy there.
Yep.
And again, self-worth is bullshit, but it's just the freaking mechanism we've been given.
Right.
So,
Yep.
accountability, I know I mentioned it before, but it's so important, not because I want you to be a good little soldier and take accountability. I hate that. I don't want anyone to be a good little soldier. I want you to be bad little rebels. Is that the opposite of a good little
Yeah,
soldier?
but even
Okay.
a rebel would be accountable for what they've done.
Yeah, but I think sometimes people are be accountable for your mistakes, and they mean it in this fall on your sword kind of shitty way.
Be a martyr.
Yeah.
Right.
I always feel like I sometimes risk being sounding like a motivational speaker, one of those older white guys on TikTok who look at you so judgy and they have their legs crossed in that one particular way. As soon as I see it, I'm like, you
Swipe.
think you know everything. Yeah.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I don't want to sound like that. But the energy of accountability shifts so much. So
Right.
have you ever sat in the energy of denial for more than 30 seconds?
Yes.
It's a fucking bad time.
Yes, I have.
It's shit. Your body hurts. You feel terrible.
Right.
You're and it's a waste.
Yes.
It's not getting you anywhere. It's not
Mhm.
helping you.
No.
it's most likely going to have you scheme to bury the body, to like that reaction you were talking about, of
Right.
like, how do I get the hell out of this?
Or you start to like gaslight yourself.
Oh, it's
Because you have to create this story that makes sense to the denial, and so then you're literally like gaslighting yourself.
and you're never moving through it. You're never getting
No.
over it. You're, even if it's a little thing, you're gonna just
Right.
stay stuck.
Yeah.
The frequency your body must drop to in that
Oof.
moment has got to be
Yucky.
hideous. Like, it's a stage. You're gonna hit that for a moment.
Right.
Right. You're gonna be like, you're gonna do the thing I did where like, how do I spin this? Or like, that's
Right.
all denial.
Right.
You're gonna, but just don't sit there,
Right.
because that's no good. So if you
No.
look at the opposite of that, it's accountability. And that's sort of like,
Mm.
how do I address this? How do I get through this to the other side of this in a way where I can protect my integrity, in a way where I can learn something, but like whatever happened as a result of it, I
Right.
can work on making better.
Right.
That's the energy that will help you. That is going to raise your frequency.
Exactly.
That is helpful.
Yep.
Okay. What you do if someone else makes a mistake and you have to address it.
Yikes.
I'm guessing this would be your favorite thing to do in the world.
No. No.
I'm saying this because there are so many
No.
times where I'm telling Jamie about like a work thing that I have to do, where I have to go tell someone about
Oh,
like a hard
God.
conversation,
Oh, my
and
God.
she's like, you're like, I would be like the Kool-Aid man running through the wall.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, let me get all my tactics and go like,
No, I would rather like,
yeah.
as much as I hate making a mistake, I would rather make the mistake than have to tell someone else about it, because
Interesting.
then like I'd have to manage their feelings about it and like
Yeah.
spin it so that it's okay, and like
yeah.
watch them
Yeah.
be in a yucky place for a little bit. Like
Right.
I don't want to do any of that.
I
But
mean,
I've also lived a life where I've like eaten so much shit over like
was just gonna say that.
ignoring someone's mistakes because
Yeah.
I didn't want to talk to them about it. Like
Yeah.
that's also sucks.
yes. I mean,
You know?
when you have this belief, we've talked about it before, that you have to be accommodating to be loved.
Right.
One of the least accommodating things you can do is go address a mistake
And
with
tell
somebody.
someone. Right, exactly.
So it's like you would literally rather be the one who screwed up
Yes.
than have to walk somebody else through that, because it's going to be such a traumatizing process.
Correct.
Also valuable information.
See?
We're working on it.
Right.
But it's, do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it is. But if
Yeah.
you do have to do that, I have some tips for you.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to sort of skew this in my examples. I'm going to try to do both, but like more towards like a professional setting,
Okay.
and try to also give like a parenting example. But
Okay.
I don't want anyone to think that I think those are the only two areas people need to address mistakes. These are
Yeah,
just
no,
like,
yeah.
I feel like you can apply them.
Just adjust them.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So the best thing to do is to be direct and to ask for information and ask for the person who made the mistakes perspective. Okay. A mistake that a lot of people make
Uh-huh.
when they go to address a mistake
Mhm.
is they do the compliment sandwich, which is
Oh, yeah.
really good if you're trying to get someone to improve something, or someone's like lacking or needs to do better at a skill. If you have that sort of criticism for someone, the compliment sandwich is perfect.
Yeah.
But if you're telling someone about a mistake, the
Yeah.
compliment sandwich is a bad idea.
Okay.
Like just think of it. If I have to tell you that you were the one who messed up. You told me Mercury was the god of war, right?
Right.
I have to tell you that you messed that up. You don't realize it. I have to come tell you that you messed that up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Jamie, you do so good on the podcast, but you screwed up the Mercury. You said the Mercury is the god of war, but your hair looked really good that day. Like,
No.
you are going to be furious with me.
Yeah, no,
because
just
the
say
other
it.
compliments sound like shit.
Shitty. Yeah.
You just want me to say the thing.
Yeah.
All right. So like that's where you have to absolutely just be like, hey, so this happened.
Right.
Can you give me some information about it?
Yeah.
And I know you're going to want to go, it's okay. You're going to want to babysit the person's feelings. Don't do that.
I know.
Because you're going to tell them how to feel, and then they're going to feel that way.
Okay.
Not everyone's going to feel like shit when they
Right.
make a mistake, and not everyone's going to feel like shit in the way you're going to feel like shit. So people do this thing what you're projecting. If
Right.
I made a mistake, I would feel like this.
Yeah.
So you're putting that on them, and then they do feel like that. right?
Yep.
It's like suggesting. I suggest you feel like really sad.
Yeah.
And someone's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Or be horrified that you made this mistake.
Give them a chance to give you a perspective and talk about what happened. Not only will that give you the information you need on how to then support them through the mistake,
Yeah.
but it will also give them a moment to process it.
Gotcha.
Because if you're processing it while I'm talking at you,
Mm-hmm.
no good.
Too much.
Yeah. But if I say that, or if you're like, can I sit with that for a few minutes and then we talk about it? Yes, of course.
Gotcha.
Process.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
You want to ask questions. Now, if you are a parent and you are addressing your kid making something that you think is a mistake, ask them a lot of questions.
Okay.
If you go in just accusing, you've lost the upper hand completely, first of all. But you're also not going to get any honest answers because you're going to put them in defense. Same in a professional setting, anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay? The moment you put someone in defense, as the other person, you've lost.
Right.
And I don't mean like there's a winner and a loser. I just mean like you're not going to get anything valuable.
Yeah.
This is not going to be a beautiful teaching moment. Like,
right.
You just lost. Ask them questions. Like,
what happened with your homework? What happened?
What? I saw that you have an F.
Mm.
Can you tell me a little bit about like what's going on and give me your perspective on that? Now, that doesn't feel harsh, right?
No, it
Can you
doesn't.
tell me about it?
Yep.
Hey, you messed this up at work.
Yeah.
Can you give me some more information and tell me like from your perspective what happened?
What happened?
I also just made you feel seen and I'm giving you an opportunity to be heard. So
Yeah.
now you're not as defensive.
And you're not immediately casting judgment.
No, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Okay.
That's
And
a good
again,
point.
don't assume, don't comfort someone based on how you would want to be comforted. Let them tell you because in that answer, they will tell you exactly how they feel.
Right. Excellent point.
People are going to do that, especially when someone thinks they've made a mistake, the natural human reaction is to be vulnerable. Right?
Yeah.
So they're going to tell you.
Right.
It's one of those rare times where people will tell you
Right.
how they feel.
That's a good point.
Okay. If it's a very small thing, you could just say, hey, I noticed this, and I think it's actually this. You do not need to go overboard being nice around it.
Yeah. You also don't have to be like, hey, you screwed up, it's this. You could just say.
Yes. Exactly.
Gotcha.
I'd also like to point out, I point this out every time my husband and I watch a TV show where there's like some sort of cop or FBI or something interrogating somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I point this out every time, and he just really loves that I say it every single time. Just kidding. He hates it. Okay. In real life, when you learn how to interrogate people, yes, I have learned how to interrogate people. No, I won't tell you all the classes I've taken on it and all the secrets, but I will say relating to them and being nice to them is the way. You know, on all the shows, they're like screaming at them and trying to make them afraid and feel like shit.
Right.
That's not how it happens in real life. That would not actually help you get any kind of information out of somebody.
Right.
Really, what those people do is go in and try to find ways to connect to people.
Yep.
How do I connect to this person so that they will feel like they can tell me the vulnerable information I need to get through whatever.
Right.
Yes. So if someone's made a mistake and you decide to like intimidate them and yell at them, terrible tactic. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Lastly, I want to just talk real quick about how our society views mistakes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So one of the things that's interesting is that society really has this whole messaging system that drives me crazy.
Okay.
It's like the way you learn, Jamie, is through making mistakes.
Oh,
How many times have you heard that?
Right.
How many quotes? Google right now.
Right.
Quotes about mistakes.
Yeah.
And do the image search and tell me how many of those say that that's how you learn.
Okay.
Okay. And then think of what the consequences were for you when you made a mistake.
Right. Like grades
Yeah.
in general, like grading.
So you're told you're lesser.
Right.
Like this, your messaging mixed with what we do as a society makes no sense.
Exactly.
0 sense.
there's no consistency or continuity, right?
No, because in life,
Right.
mistakes do have consequences.
Right.
That's absolutely true.
Right.
But in all of the systems and like teachings and like the consequences to them all have to do with what it means about you as a person,
Right.
not about actually learning the lesson.
Well, that can even be said for grades. Like,
yes,
like you start to like value you derive self-value and self-worth from your letter grades in school.
Yeah.
So then you don't put any value on actually learning the material.
Exactly.
You just want the A.
Yes. So that you're not making a mistake.
Right. So that you're valued in some way.
Right. So you get this really mixed messaging
Right.
all the time. And so if I could change the quote, because the other thing, before I tell you the new quote that I came up with,
Okay.
if you're me, picture little kid me,
Mm-hmm.
and like her brain just like is constantly hearing what the humans are saying and seeing all the ways that they're not actually following through with it.
Right. It doesn't make any sense.
It's like people learn from their mistakes, but I was watching a lot of people not learn from their mistakes.
Or getting in trouble for their mistakes.
No, and they're just
Right.
repeating and repeating and repeating and
Right.
repeating, and you're going like, they're not learning from their mistakes.
Right.
So it's not even true. It's
Right.
not. It doesn't work.
Yep.
Okay. Here's what I am saying should be the quote. Maybe you can make it sound more sparkly. Mistakes give you more information. You decide what to do with the information.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all. That's what a mistake is.
Yeah, mistakes
It's
are
a
just
flood of
data.
information.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. You decide.
Yeah.
You might decide to learn from it. You
Or
might
not.
decide to grow from it. You might decide to do some work, gather that information, or you might decide not
Get
to.
mad and stomp away.
Yeah, that's it. It's just an opportunity, is what it is. Like,
Right.
it's none of the other things.
It's just, the mistake is the feedback,
Yeah.
right? Of like whatever you were
Yes.
doing,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's consequences to mistakes, but they're different for different people, for different social standings, different skin colors, different genders.
Yes.
So all of it,
Yes.
if you focus on that, you're going to get really upset.
Yeah.
But if you just look at it as feedback, information, you
Right.
decide what to do with it,
Mm-hmm.
that is a universal truth.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Good point.
Our current view in our society of mistakes, I'm going to say a sentence and you're going to go, I've heard conservatives say that sentence, Heather, what's wrong with you?
Oh, what is it?
That canceling people because they make a mistake is about the worst thing you could actually do.
Oh, yeah. Well, depends.
I mean, if you're Bill Cosby, absolutely
Correct.
get the fuck out of society
Forever.
forever.
Right.
Sure. Yes.
Yes. No, I mean, there has to be some threshold for.
I'm not talking about crimes. I mean, I am
Right.
going to talk about crimes, to be honest with you, because jail also makes no sense.
No, that doesn't work either.
Like, but that's sort of the same thing.
Yes.
It's like, okay, you screwed up, so we hate you now, and we're outcasting you from society, and we're
Right.
bullying you because of it.
Right.
Is the absolute opposite of holding someone accountable.
Right. And creating an opportunity for growth.
Yes.
The mistake should lead to growth
Yes.
if done properly. Right. If
But
processed
it might
properly.
not.
Right.
And they don't choose to grow, then
Right.
the consequences should be based on the way that they take accountability and the actions somebody takes afterwards.
Right.
Should people be held accountable for mistakes? Yes.
Right.
We don't need to celebrate them, but we should
No.
like rehabilitate people
Right.
instead of outcasting people.
Right.
That's my point.
Correct.
I'm sorry if I sounded a little bit like a conservative.
Well-
I don't, a lot of that stuff when you hear them talk about cancel culture or whatever, they're not saying what we should do. They're
Correct.
just trying to attack
Right.
something. So I'm not siding with that. I'm
No.
just saying that like completely canceling people
Right.
is not rehabilitating people. It's not
Right.
giving them more information and helping them grow. It's sort of like banning the books. Like
Yeah.
you're just taking away the information.
Yeah.
You need to give
Right.
opportunity.
Right.
Should you let somebody who like murders people all the time just like hang out in society and hope they learn?
No.
No, I'm not saying that.
No.
Don't twist it. But the way we do it is not great.
Well, you're also not going to rehabilitate people in a system that was set up to enslave people.
Well, right. Exactly.
I mean, that's what we're dealing with in America. Like our prison system was made to just legally enslave people.
exactly.
Right.
So
So
it's-
that's not going to work. I mean, it's
Yes.
statistically proven to not work.
I just think a lot of people don't realize that they're reacting within the broken system by
promoting this cancel people.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's
Yeah.
actually you going along with the broken capitalistic patriarchal society.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And again, the consequences are different if you're based on your
White.
gender, on your skin color, on your
Right.
the amount of money you
Heteronormative
have in the
white
bank.
male, right.
Yeah,
Rich
exactly,
white male,
exactly. All right, the last thing I just want to leave you with, I know it's a little bit of a long episode,
Yeah.
but
They're always like that.
I mean, it happens. We just talk about it till we're done talking about it.
Happens every week.
I just want you to think of what is your definition of a mistake.
Mm,
Because a lot of times we have these words that have this power over us that we don't have defined.
good point.
So what is a mistake?
I've never thought about that.
Okay, so like everyone to think about that. I don't want to give you mine because I don't want to
don't.
fill people
I want to
in.
think about it.
But I want you to really think like, what is a mistake? And then you can really look at these other questions and go, oh.
I bet even your definition will probably give you a lot of clues of where you need to start doing some work.
Yeah, and
If
if
I
you-
was just running mine,
yeah,
I'm
you're like,
oh, that's not right.
I mean, that's real witchcraft, is
Right.
redefining a word that you haven't accurately defined. Because every time you say it, it's a spell.
Or you've taken someone else's definition of.
Yes, but the energy that you're reacting to is something else. So
Mhm.
there's this mismatch.
Correct.
So to really heal it, if you don't actually know how to define it, is really difficult.
Yeah, you have to like realign. You have to align the definition.
Yeah.
To your own.
Yes. And if I can
Thoughts.
suggest pen to paper to work it out, there's something a
Or
little
even
extra
like a
magical.
little note on your phone if you're just like actually like putting it, actually
Actively,
creating
yes,
it, like
yes.
making it show up on the screen of your phone.
Get it out of your brain
Mhm.
however you need to.
Mhm.
Work through it, write a lot of stuff to get the right one. But
Yeah.
like actually going like, this is how I define a mistake is going to help. And don't just use like another synonym, like really
No,
describe it
Write it out.
as if someone
right.
doesn't know what it is.
Right.
They've really never heard of it.
Right. Like an alien was reading about it.
Yes. You're
Right.
explaining it to an alien.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully it's a hot alien.
Hopefully they take us with them.
Yeah.
Take me.
Get
with you.
us out of here. Can you help us with the Florida book situation? Jesus. Maybe they have some like real wise information. I don't know how the end of this podcast turned out to like a shout out for alien help, but this is where we are.
This is why people want to like jump timelines,
Oh yeah.
because it's like the easy way out of the
Yeah.
situation is
Oh
to
my God.
just like jump
That's
to the
the
other
ultimate
timeline.
avoidance. Talk about fight, flight, or freeze. Like that's real flight if you're like, I'm actually gonna flee the timeline.
Right. And it's also like the height of privilege
Yeah, right.
to be like, hey,
Yeah.
screw you suckers. I'm jumping over here. in
I'm
this
jumping timelines
right.
where DeSantis doesn't
See you over
exist.
there. Exactly. And you're
Yeah.
leaving everyone else in the lurch.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. All right. Well, I think that we should
Stay
go.
here and fight.
Okay, you stay here and fight, but can we get coffee while we
Oh,
fight?
absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
let's go do that.
Yeah.